Autonomic Response Testing the Omnia radiation balancer against a 5G radiation field. This is the short version. There's an extended version of this video on our YouTube channel, so please subscribe.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Wilson. I'm a nutritional therapist and functional medicine practitioner and ART practitioner, and I've been practicing in the natural medicine industry for 13 years, and I've been working as an ART practitioner for the last 2 years. Well, ART stands for Autonomic Response Testing, and so we're doing just that. We're using the autonomic nervous system as an access to be able to do the muscle test. It's a form of muscle testing, but it does differ from other muscle tests such as kinesiology for a few key reasons, because we're actually testing via the autonomic nervous system the Bio-Photon coherence that's coming off the body. So we emit and we receive information in the way of light, also known as biophotons, and because of the two devices that we use in autonomic response testing, the pull filter and the signal enhancer, we're able to see what's happening within the biophoton field. The other main difference with autonomic response testing is that we're also looking at the parasympathetic nervous system, and we do that through the O-ring test. And that's something that's often not done in most other muscle testing modalities. And that's really important because we want to be able to see not only when a person's going into a state of stress or relaxation in response to a remedy or an intervention. Without looking at that, we're basically missing the deepest healing state that can occur, which is the yang state. And that's really the strongest state of healing that a person can go into. And that's tested only via the parasympathetic nervous system, that we can test via the hands. In autonomic response testing, we do use an assistant or an arm or an intermediary, we may call them, and the reason for that, it comes out of Dr Omura's work, who's a Japanese medical doctor, and he found through his studies that when you do put a person in the middle as a conduit, that the testing actually becomes a lot more accurate. And there's a number of reasons for that, but in simple terms it's because my stuff isn't affecting the patient's body. For example, if I'd eaten a lot of wheat for lunch and the patient was wheat sensitive, that actually might cause that not to show then in the patient's body because I'm in their field almost like a big vial of wheat. Not only that, the patient's things have the potential to impact me as well, and then potentially impact the testing. So putting somebody in the middle seems to just neutralize that all out and make for a lot more accurate testing. We have two key pieces of equipment that we use in an ART session. The first of which is called a signal enhancer, and that's a highly crystalline polymer block which actually communicates with the body's biophoton field. And when we combine that with another piece of equipment which is called a pull filter, we're actually then asking of the body how coherent the light is when combined with a muscle test. The pull filter has many lines that run across it, thousands, all in a linear fashion, and the light comes out of our body in a wave-like fashion in this direction. And so whenever we place this behind a person's head, we're actually measuring how coherent the light is coming out of their body. And we have a way to measure and see how coherent that is too. Some people we have a little dial on the polymer block, and some people we won't get an open muscle test at 0 because they potentially have some serious things going on with their health that needs to be resolved, or maybe they're particularly stressed that day about something. But people that are in the optimal state of health tend to have open an angle of anywhere from 70 up to 89 degrees. So we can turn the pull filter on the dial and muscle test at the same time to see where we get an opening angle, and that goes to either side. And so that's a really nice way to be able to see where a person is on their health journey.
We're here in Cheryl's treatment room, and we're going to be using my phone today because it's 5G enabled. So I've turned that on, and what I've noticed is that we're picking up a 5G signal in her treatment room. So I've got my phone on airplane mode at the moment, and what we're going to do just quickly is turn on this EMF meter and see what happens when we turn it off airplane mode. Right now it's at about 0.004 microwatts per square meter. That's very low, that's what you'd expect. So let's just have a quick look at what happens when I turn it off airplane mode and it looks for a 5G signal. So now we see the readings going up to 312, 130.
So Stephanie, would you like to lie on the bed and we'll start your session? And this is Tammy, she's going to assist me with the muscle test.
Ooh. Hi, Tammy. I'm just going to put my hand on your thigh, okay? Okay.
So we're going to create a bit of a circuit, and I'm going to be testing via Tammy's arm because it makes the testing actually more accurate. So we're going to look and see if you have open regulation. So let me test. Okay, so we have blocked regulation. I'm also going to check your parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, go back to here. So this phone's on airplane mode, so if you just put it in your hand and hold it up in front of you as if you were maybe reading some text messages, and we'll see if that makes any difference to your regulation. No, so you still have fully open regulation with the support of the chlorella. And then I'm going to turn it off airplane mode, and now we're connected to 5G. We'll just give it a moment to kick in. And then test again. Okay, so something has changed. So I'm just going to check and see, I'll go right down to 0 and see if you're now in fully blocked regulation. And you are. So all of a sudden you're in a much worse state of health. The coherence of your bio-photons in your biofield is completely impacted.
Mm.
So let's try one of the stickers on the phone and see if that makes any difference to what just happened. So the phone is still on 5G. If you put it in your hand and look and see what happens, as if you're reading a text message. Oh, and now your regulation has opened again. Let's see how much it has opened. Previously you were at 89 with the chlorella because your body really liked that. And now you're back to 89, so it's as if the phone never happened. And what is a really interesting test is to actually put it to your head, because as many of us know these days, you shouldn't really ever put the mobile phone to your head.
Okay.
So actually put it to your head as if you were taking a call. You still have it on your head. So I'm going to do up to 8.
Mm-hmm.
What? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So even now that the phone is to your head, your parasympathetic nervous system has gone into a very deep healing state that we call a yang state, which is incredible because you really shouldn't go into a healing state whenever you have a mobile phone to your head. So it seems that something about the sticker has, I can just, only expect maybe something in the frequency has turned into something that can actually be beneficial to your body, which sounds completely unbelievable.
That's amazing. One sticker.
So now I'm actually going to call this phone with my phone and see what happens whenever the phone connects to a call and if that changes anything.
We're also going to use this electromagnetic frequency meter to see what levels come in to the phone.
Okay.
Going up to 75, 50, 111, 89. Quite a high reading.
So now we have both phones connected on a call. Let's see how that impacts your system. Okay, so that's no different as if you were reading the text messages with the sticker on. Nothing has changed in your Bio-Photon coherence. Put it to your head and now let's see what happens. There's been a change in the muscle. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you've gone into healing state again with the mobile phone.
Oh, really?
On a call to your ear.
Wow. So that was very interesting. When I held the phone up to my head and the sticker was on, you mentioned I went into deep healing. What does that mean?
Yeah, when we tested your parasympathetic nervous system with the fingers over here, there's varying degrees of healing state that you could go into between 1 and 8, 8 being the deepest, and whenever it was to your head, you went into the deepest healing state. In fact, when you had it here, you didn't go into a healing state, you were just okay with it. It didn't make any difference to your biofield. So that was a very strange result that we wouldn't expect.
That was actually a very interesting session for me, very enlightening, because as a person that kind of is very sensitive to vibes, and I do actually feel sometimes that I'm holding my phone when I'm at my computer. I do feel very tired. I do feel a lot of like it's sort of interfering with my thought process sometimes, if I could describe it that way. And doing that process work just now was, I could actually feel the differences between when I was, just holding the phone or just being on the tablet without the sticker. I actually did feel a kind of stress, like I could just describe it as sort of stress, and it was a bit foggy. And with it on, I actually felt coherent is the word as well. I know that's quite a subtle way of expressing it, but I could actually feel it in my body. And I think that the moment that I found the most interesting was when I actually put the phone next to my head with the sticker on. And Cheryl mentioned that I went into a deep healing state. I actually did feel very peaceful. I was very calm, and I wanted to go to sleep, which is probably what I need. I think more and more people are going to be sensitive, so this is actually very, very calming to me to know that it does work on myself.
So the results of today's test and the fact that what we're seeing through the testing, that you can put the mobile phone to the head and it actually is putting somebody into a healing state. It does feel quite alien to me now to be able to, I probably wouldn't, recommend that people are, going to still continue to put their mobile phone to their head. I do think it needs more looking at how long would that potential effect last, and but I think it's just really valuable insight that sometimes certain things do need to be done. Sometimes we are in a Wi-Fi rich environment. Sometimes we do. Sometimes our kids do get their hands on our mobile devices. Sometimes we do need to take a call. So it just is that extra level of assuredness on top of the fact that I would not have Wi-Fi on at home and have a wired connection, and on top of the fact that I never put my mobile phone to my head. But just to know that whenever the sticker is on there, that it seems to be having a very positive effect on the frequency that is being emitted by the device, and that just gives me an extra level of confidence then in that I'm doing everything possible to reduce my exposure.
I want to talk about some of the conclusions and what we saw. Maybe first of all, you could talk about what we saw when people didn't have any protection on their phone, when they were holding the phone. What did you see there?
Yeah, well, the main thing that we were seeing is that they were going into what's called blocked regulation, which is where even whenever we'd either opened their Bio-Photon field with something such as chlorella, which is a very simple remedy that often does that, that then they would quite quickly then jump back into this blocked regulation whenever they were exposed to these higher levels of radiation that a phone or a Bluetooth headset has, or an iPad connected to Wi-Fi.
Yeah, great. And then we obviously put the Omnia radiation balancer on the phone or the Bluetooth headset. And then what observations did you notice in the subjects that we tested?
Yeah, it was a really interesting observation, which was that when it's away from the body, just on the hand, the device, that they did, even where the regulation was only at about 10 out of a possible 89, it was actually going the whole way to 89, which showed that it seemed to be having a positive effect on the state of that person's field. And then what was even more surprising was whenever the device went to the head, close to the brain, which is of course the operating system of the the machine that drives the rest of the bodily functions, that they were actually going into this very deep healing state, which just bumps up against everything we think you should do really with
right.
with a mobile phone. And
Yeah. I mean, like yourself, you're probably well aware of, the idea that everything in the body is electrical, and that, mobile phones are carrying extremely strong electrical fields, or what we would call magnetoelectric fields. So there is that, when those two fields meet, there is that what you would probably call incoherence, right?
Yes.
And we would call imbalance, the same kind of thing.
Yes.
But you noticed that balance was restored when the energy in the phone was brought into resonance with the human body. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah, that's what the test results reflected.
Is what you saw a strong enough recommendation to say that you think that the Omnia radiation balancer is helping?
Yeah, I'm definitely not recommending that people all of a sudden start putting their phone to their head. I'm really intrigued, and I want to understand now more about the technology as to how that could potentially be the case and investigate further. But yeah, I would absolutely say, in combination with the steps that I and many of my clients already take in managing their technology and reducing their exposure, this is an exciting new way for us to have even more assurance that we are, not being impacted.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Check out our other testing results in this video, or head to www.omniaradiationbalancer.com to learn about the science, to hear testimonials from our customers, and of course to buy the Omnia Radiation Balancer. Thank you.